If somebody had told me, James, you tried to have contact with King Crimson, you will end up hating them. Even in those days, I would have recognized the extreme irony of such a concept, and I would have been very steadfast in denying it. So I think it's important to be um, it's important to intend to try to be on record about what it is that actually happened, because that is the ironic outcome. And it's important to see the double game that's at work. I call this tape out of control narratives because it derives from what is at best a hypothesis put forward by Reagan and his friends that I could have saved John Lennon. And it's a hypothesis that's based on a number of different things, including the idea that Lennon really died. But with that, what Yoko Ono and David Bowie called plastic reality, with that plastic reality in place, they have a war game going to prevent testimony or public recognition of what happened because of the master narrative concept. And I'd like to show the history of this master narrative so that it's possible as a fellow human being to apprehend what went on that led me to part ways with King Crimson. And even to the point where I no longer believe that they're innocent of this. I'll show you, this is in the Odessa file. Okay, and in the beginning, Jon Voight is in a car. And it's November 22nd, 1963. I believe he's in Odessa or Germany or something. And it's coming over the radio that JFK has been killed. They don't, but the name Oswald appears on the screen while this is going on. And slowly it fades, dissolves. Into the name Ronald. And then it cuts to Jon Voight with his girlfriend in bed. He says, know what you could get for the photograph of that assassination? Now, normal, ordinary people don't consider it reasonable to speculate on an assassination and seek to profit from the kill. So I find it very sad that Adrian Belew took my postcard to Robert Fripp, and by whatever hook or by crook he went about doing what he did at Carnegie Mellon, it ended up with a man named Robert Card shooting up some deaf people in a bowling alley because of the propertizing nature of the Hines family in the city of Pittsburgh and their network of gangsters. When that happened, a whole lot of people were involved. The history of Dan Rather, he actually said the president's head could be seen to move violently forward. leading me to conclude this was the beginning of the index, because that's the opposite of what happens. It's what you would rather believe. In other words, there's a plastic reality that goes on. Conspicuous evidence was ignored. Issues of persons of interest who weren't identified. And they just closed ranks around the bogus story. And I questioned the motive of lying about all of this enough that I became suspicious of King Crimson themselves. And of course, Reagan cinema tends to rankle with me because the peeping Tom element of this semiotic recurs throughout the script. And what is more, the script was found on this little boy whose family had a painting of 3 Hitler nuns. That's a strange place to find the script in an environment with Hitler nuns. And one of Reagan's films has a Sephardic woman confronting a nice blonde woman, as Miles Kirshner would describe a woman of the racial stock of me. Nice blonde boy, he used to call me. And she has her hand on a brick that's looks like meat. And this idea of Jews seeking revenge is implicit in the entire fabric of semiotic overlap of reality, which I believe, quite honestly, Reagan was the master planner. And the script writer appears on Robert Fripp's record in 1979. Very conspicuous lookalike of Gail Burstyn. Also in Seattle Center. I've had worlds of problems in Seattle. Of course, the dream come true is to make their victim the accused. Notice the collar that says Mac. And to get the victims to side with those who are mocking them. And it worked. To kill a mockingbird, you get the people he's mocking to side with their own killers. And it's very strange stylistic espionage that you find in the history of this clavern that came to include, for reasons of distribution of spoils and common choice of victims, the NAACP. The NAACP worked with Miles Kirshner on the Peep Show on Mount Desert Island, and very decidedly came down in favor of using a nice blonde boy. And thus the Green Party was born. I think it's not only a shame that our society can't own up to it, but it's a shame that King Crimson would be implicated the way they have been. And I caution you against believing this is something that is different between Adrian Belew and Robert Fripp. That's what I would have fought to the bitter end to believe. Why would they be so determined to exploit a tragedy. It's really very sad for me. It's sad for me. You know, they expected me to say, but to play the existential, the the beetle in a Franz Kafka book, the bug, the man who's turned into a beetle. I didn't know. I didn't. I would never hurt John Lennon, and that's the sort of French cinema aspect. I didn't know. I would never hurt John Lennon. October 20th, my birthday, appears in the film Diva. To put that kind of spin on, here are your lines, Queerbait. Believe them all you want to. No one else cares. That's the way Peter Sinfield stage directed it. He's a lyricist for Celine Dion. You saw what they pulled in the Paris Olympics. That's the French Kafka aspect. I would never. Anybody who believes that John Lennon really died would say, "Oh my God! Don't tell me they tried to blame Jimmy Carrere." Anybody who knew me would just, "Oh my God!"